Most guitarists tend to complain that amp captures are a little more dark and compressed than the real thing. And look, there's definitely some coloration going on between all the units, but what if that actually wasn't a bad thing? So here's my idea. This is my Vox AC4. It's a 4-watt all-tube amp with a single 1x10 speaker. I bought it back in high school and I actually really love this thing. One of my favorite features is the wattage control knob, so you can go 4 watts, 1 watt, or even down to a 1/4 watt. 4 watts may not seem like much, but let me tell you, this thing is loud. It sounds like a Vox. You can get some pretty good saturation tones, and it definitely has that little bit of tube mojo that you could only get from a real all-tube amp. I just have one complaint about it, and it's that the low-end response is not very good. Cue Neural Capture. In my experience, Neural Capture definitely accentuates some of the low end, and I think it might be compressing the signal just a touch. So I'm thinking we can actually use these character flaws to our advantage when capturing an amp like this. So my hypothesis is that by doing a Neural Capture on this amp, it'll actually add in a little bit of that low end warmth we're missing and ultimately result in a better, more balanced Vox style amp sound. I want to get 2 sounds captured today, a clean setting and a breakup tone. To do that, I set up the good old AC4 in my bedroom and dialed in my clean sound. Then I placed the mic and got lucky because it actually sounded pretty solid right out of the gate. Now that the tone was good to go, I plugged in all the various chords you need to in order to do a capture, and I let the Quad Cortex do its thing. And here's what we got. Now that I've got the clean sound captured, let's hear it up against the real thing. There is something nice to the smoothness and a little bit of low-end warmth on the captured version of the amp. It's not a life-changing difference, but it's enough that when I was playing, I was like, I like this. Worth noting, the captured version of the AC4 feels so much like playing on the real thing. It's cool how close it is. But yeah, I think the Neural Capture adds a little bit more, not just in frequency, but a little bit of like the oomph behind the playing. Something about it has a little more punch. I'd take it over the real amp. And real quick, if you're enjoying this video, be sure to leave a like on it. It helps out a ton. To continue the experiment, I'm doing the exact same process, but with an edge of breakup tone. I'm really excited for you to hear this one because I felt like this particular capture came out really, really good. Check it out. Okay, so the technology is clearly impressive, and in this case, I felt like the distorted tone sounded even more close to the actual thing. Now maybe that's just my ear, but that's just totally not what I expected to happen. Anyway, here's the real thing and the capture side by side. So once again, pretty close results. I think the real amp is maybe a little more open, but I definitely don't mind the added compression that seems to be happening on the Neural Capture. It's musical, it warms up the tone, and I feel like it's a little more punchy, like it has a little more oomph behind it. I think the Neural Capture actually enhanced the real thing. Now that I've had a chance to listen to all these different samples back to back over and over again, I think there is an element of a low end boost happening and maybe even a top end boost, or maybe simply what's happening is the mid frequencies are getting carved out a little bit. And I think it's that voicing that gives the Quad Cortex that perception of being mixed. And I wouldn't say this EQ curve is exclusive to the Neural Captures. Just about everything I try in the Quad Cortex seems to kind of have this sort of voicing. So while it may not be 100% true to what's happening, I'd say it is pretty musical and pleasing to the ear, and it does sit well in a mix. So I have one more sample for you because I was kind of pleasantly surprised with how these captures came out. So what I went ahead and did was put the clean AC4 capture on the left and the dirty AC4 capture on the right to get this really cool wide stereo image. While tone enthusiasts and amp enthusiasts are probably always gonna choose the real amp over a capture or a digital model, you gotta admit, the technology is getting really, really good. These captures sound great. Heck, I think the natural shortcomings of Neural Capture really work to our advantage when working with the AC4. So maybe that's something to bear in mind when you're making your captures, or if you haven't been in love with the capture sounds you're getting out of the Quad Cortex. It's just gonna add a slight coloration to your tone, maybe a touch of compression, and definitely a little bit of low end warmth. And those two things are pretty easily accounted for. You can just make your tone slightly brighter than you're used to, and with the capture doing its thing, it might land right in that sweet spot. Or who knows, maybe you'll just capture your amp the way it is and really like the added warmth and smoothness. You just gotta remember that while it's not an exact recreation of your amp, it's a flavor of it. And that's kind of how I've changed my mentality about all these captures. Is just like, is this a usable tone, and is this a tone that gets me to where I want to go? I'm far less concerned about how exact the copy is and just more concerned with how usable the copy is. Because like we learned today, the fact that the copy was not exact actually bettered the overall tone. For I don't know, maybe the fact that the Neural Capture isn't a complete replica ruined your amazing tone from that Line 6 Spider you're trying to capture. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Be sure to comment below which version you thought sounded better, the real AC4 or the capture of it. Be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I will catch you next time. Hey Bailey, which one sounded better? Quad Cortex or the real amp?
What can I say? I'm a tube amp girl. Yeah, sorry, I'm just kind of an old school tone kind of girl.